But the Shias cannot just be ignored or oppressed, and the Sunnis' aspirations must be recognized just as well. So my three-pronged approach, to repeat it again one more time, is we must remove the most extreme members of the Khalifa leadership and the notorious torturers like Fleifel and people like that who are so powerful in government today. We have to establish a government of national unity, seek to re-establish the political center, which is what the Crown Prince was trying to do in March. But that was destroyed either from within Bahrain or from Saudi Arabia or both. But we have to try to re-establish this political center, get the Shia to agree that it's not a good idea to have clerics as leaders, and to just have the more how should I say, the more open and people in the Shia community come into government and manage these things. The political system has to be reformed. This whole election system has to be totally changed so that we don't have these little areas which are gerrymandered in favor of the Sunnis, and have just one region, which is mentioned in the Bassiouni report. Just have one country, 700,000 people, that you don't have to have 10 or 20 or 30 different little voting areas, right? And again, and finally, actively seek to integrate all the sects in the armed forces and the police forces. So I'll leave it at that, maybe.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jean-Francois. Thank you, Joost. Joost, why don't you both stand here at the podium together, and we'll take questions. This is, unfortunately, we don't have a nice table where everybody can sit. But
that's all right.
Yes. But thank you very much.
Just kidding.
So we've heard reconciliation is possible, but we need to get certain outside players to agree on certain principles. One player none of you mentioned very much is the United States, yes. And I hope somebody in this room will ask a question about U.S. policy. But we have so many Bahrain experts in this room, I'm going to leave the floor to them to ask those questions.
Thank you. Mark Katz from George Mason University. Really excellent presentations. Jean-Francois, I was intrigued by your remarks about the possibility of Iraq being involved in the events in Bahrain. And certainly some time ago, Prime Minister Maliki did indeed speak out on behalf of the Shias. But I'm just curious as to how, in fact, can Iraq be very much involved in Bahrain? I mean, surely the Iraqi government has its plate full already with events at home. And also, if they are, this seems to imply a grander foreign policy vision that Maliki has and perhaps we've known about previously. And then finally, I'd like to just ask if, in fact, the Iraqis are involved in Bahrain, is this in collaboration with Iran or in competition with it? Thank you.
I love easy questions.
Two speakers, let's take two questions at a time.
David Mack, Middle East Institute. I've got a modest but I think significant proposal for something that might be done to give a little more salience to the Bassiouni report. You two gentlemen have read it, and I'm very pleased to hear your expert views on the report. I have known Shafiq Bassiouni for decades now and have the highest degree of respect for him. And I knew that he would behave independently, despite the funding for their commission. But that report is kind of old news now. I mean, and it's losing its potency. And as you described it, the problem is not with the substance of the report, but that perhaps it doesn't go far enough or it's not going to be implemented. But you have to deal with the tools you have. So what if another monarchy made some gesture to elevate Bassiouni? Let's say the Norwegian monarchy, by giving him a Nobel Prize. He was nominated for a Nobel Prize because of his work on Bosnia. And there's the International Crisis Group, for example, I think has standing, perhaps, to nominate him. If that doesn't work, maybe the Middle East Institute can give him an award at their annual banquet.
Oh, wow. There's no choice.
All right. Why don't we take the Iraq question, Jean-Francois, and then we'll I'll let you tackle David's suggestion.
I mean, I do not know for a fact that the Iraqi government is involved in the events in Bahrain. What I do know is that the main Shia leadership in Bahrain is very close because of the schools of thoughts in Shiism to the schools of thoughts in Najaf and Karbala. And therefore, they will be listened to, and they are being listened to. You know, I mean, Ali Salman did not actually go to school in Iraq because of Saddam Hussein in those days. But by and large, the Iraqi leadership, the Shia leadership, religious leadership, is very close to the Iraqi leadership. And I believe, forget about al-Maliki, I think, or Maliki, I think what I'm really trying to say here is that the Shia organizations in Iraq could have very much of a positive influence on the Bahraini ones, and therefore limit, or help with the reconciliation.
That said, the talk in Bahrain is very much among Sunnis, is that the Shias of Bahrain are too close to the Iraqi leadership, not the Najafi crowd, but the Maliki crowd who are, well, we can go into, who are seen to be close to Iran politically, never mind their religious beliefs. So it all gets a little bit, fuzzy. What people in Bahrain are saying against the Shia is that, look what happened in Iraq. The Shia took power, and it's become an Iranian proxy. Whether it's true or not, or whether we believe it is irrelevant, that is very much part of the narrative right now, the Sunni narrative in Bahrain. And so if you sort of say that the Shia of Bahrain are close to Najaf, I'm not sure at this point, even though that would be the right thing to say, the correct, factually and empirically correct, I think it might actually not work, given what has happened in Iraq over the past few years.
That is absolutely true. But this is why they have to be involved. You don't talk, we have to talk to the people you disagree with, and otherwise you get nowhere. I mean, so I think that the Iraqis would have to be involved, as well as the Iranians, as well as the Saudis in all this.
On the Basuni matter, I will take no position on the Nobel Prize, this or that, or certainly don't know who will nominate who. But I think that even if he gets the Nobel Prize, I don't think it will have any impact on Bahrain. I think that's important. The other thing is that Mr. Basuni, I'm not sure what his deal is with the Bahraini government, but he's been there in a very recent period, maybe still there, I don't know, and he seems to be on some kind of deal or arrangement contract, I'm not sure what exactly it is, with the Bahraini government. So he still has a role to play. I'm not sure, again, whether it's another commission or it's the implementation of the recommendations or it is something entirely different. But I would like to see him move from the Commission's human rights focus to the political reform. Now, if he does that, then I would reconsider my earlier statement about the nomination.
I should just note that we have question cards in the overflow room for those of you who would like to send your questions to the front. Any questions? There are no questions. Well, what about the U.S. role? I mean, I think, obviously, I'm not going to characterize the U.S. handling of Bahrain. I think we've all read the reports. Some would say we fumbled it very badly. We've been hypocritical on Bahrain. Others would argue otherwise. But we both criticized Bahrain. We've also authorized an arms shipment. In terms of achieving the points that you've talked about, Jean-Francois, and also Joost, what can the U.S. do right now? If you were to sit down in a room with Jeffrey Feltman or William Burns, the Deputy Secretary, what would you tell them that the U.S. should do, either in terms of talking to the Saudis or the others that could actually move the reform process along?
Right. We have been wrestling with this issue, obviously, for the last months. It's very, very tricky. The administration will say, listen, we are involved in quiet diplomacy. And the problem with quiet diplomacy is you don't actually know what they're saying and how forcefully they're saying it. And without sort of the public limelight on it, you cannot add to that pressure very effectively. They might be saying nothing. I don't think so. I think they are saying things, but